Welcome back, listeners, to Cosmic Confluence Podcast. Well, today's conversation it is interesting because we are doing astrology in a way that does not float off into the clouds. We are keeping it practical, messy, human, and useful. Oh, by the way, I'm your host Sana, and quick vibe check. This is not a medical advice, not financial advice, not sell your company because Mercury is Pisces advice, but it is an insight, reflection, and strategy. And listeners, let me introduce my guest to all of you. Today's guest is Aleksandra Ceho. She's got a rare combo in there. Very interesting combo, actually. 2 decades in martial arts teaching, 15 years teaching astrology and tarot internationally, and a hermetic lens that treats astrology like a framework for timing and decision making, not a personality label. So, listeners, let's get into this conversation. And Alexandra, welcome to Cosmic Confluence. And I'm really, really excited for you to be here.
Oh, thank you so much, Sana. I'm really excited myself. Thank you for having me today.
Super, super. Okay, I think whenever astrology word, someone would say or it's, heard or mentioned, I think the first by default thought, in anyone's mind would be like, why people believe in that, why people keep coming back to it, like even the skeptic ones. Because life is chaotic, we want language for patterns, for timing, for why we repeat certain relationship patterns, or why our careers hit a wall. You describe yourself as someone who makes the language of the stars practical and approachable. So, what do you actually do for people who are in business or or regular humans who are trying not to implode?
I love it how you say that. Trying not to implode. That's a good one. S- well, isn't the world trying not to implode? Um, so Sana, my job as an astrologer is to help people understand the power of their own nature in harmony with the powers of heaven and the universe. So we live in a world that is governed by a hermetic reality, meaning that
Mm.
there are 7 principles by which reality is created.
Okay.
And astrology very much works with the power of rhythm. Because as you mentioned earlier, Santa, there are so many cycles that exist in the world, and as human beings, there's so many cycles that we know and honor. Of course, there's the cycle of the day.
Mm.
There is our circadian rhythm. There's the cycles of the moon. There's
Mm.
the cycle of the year. We have the seasons,
Yeah.
and when we work with these cycles, when we work in harmony with them, that produces results in our lives. And we know that when we go against certain cycles, that's incredibly detrimental to ourselves. And I'm just naming the cycles that most people know of. But then there are also greater cycles that are happening for everyone as individuals and as well for the planet that that can help us to understand the bigger picture of where our lives are headed. And so when we work with those forces of astrology, I kind of like to give the example of a wind filling your sails. It makes it easier to get where you're trying to go.
That is so interesting, Alexander. So interesting because um, even in India, whenever there are discussions around astrology, it's more coming from um fear mongering, like more from a point of fear, where, okay, you have to wear this stone or wear this ring or else you're not going to get successful. Um, it's kind of a placebo effect planted, where until and unless you do this, you won't be able to achieve what you are planning to, or what you are aiming at, what is your goal, or maybe until unless you do this particular ritual, your pain will not go. But what I really loved how you explained this is not only scientific, but something we all humans can see. Probably, everyone could see, the moon, its cycle, its waxing and waning, the seasons. Even, as humans, we have cycles, we have seasons within us. Especially for women, there are seasons, where there's winter, autumn, summer. I mean, the entire menstruation and everything that is, beautifully described in terms of seasons. Then we talk about the solar cycles, the long nights of winter, the longer days of summer. And I really loved how you brought in the natural rhythm in there.
Yeah, and rhythm is part of our nature, right? We know that when our rhythms are off, that
Mhm.
that we don't have health. And so, for example, we know, like, coming from also a health background, people who do shift work, who
Mm.
alternate between day shifts and night shifts, who have these disrupted circadian rhythms, that affects their physical health, especially over the long term. And so the beauty about astrology is that it awakens us to rhythms that are happening in our life. And I like to describe astrology as the time to plant seeds. And
Mm.
when I work, especially with forecasting, Santa, there's times to work on things. There's times to maintain the growth of things. And then there's also times to let things die off. And that's all part of the magic of creation. So, when many people look at astrological forecasting, and I always love this example of Mercury retrograde because people say, don't do anything during Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should just duck and cover, hide in a bomb shelter or something like that. But rather, that is actually a chance for you to assess your relationship with the power of communication and the mind, which are the
Mhm.
areas that Mercury governs over. And where things are going wrong, you are actually being given a releasing period so that you can actually have a more pure connection to the power of the mind and to the power of communication. And so when we work with astrological forecasting, it gives us the opportunity to actually step more fully into our power and to create in a more powerful way. Because I think of myself in the Northern Hemisphere, and if I want to plant seeds, Santa, I don't go into I don't go plant them in the ground in January here in Canada, where the
Mhm.
ground is cold and hard and inhospitable to life.
Yeah.
If I do that and I stand over it and I go, "Well, why isn't it growing?" and I start getting frustrated, it's like, "Well, it's not the season." And
That's
this same principle applies to our personal lives and also to our businesses as well. And so when you use astrological forecasting, whether it's for yourself or for your business, it gives you a sense of the cycles that you are working with so that you know where you're being supported. Now, sometimes necessity might dictate that you do something, and maybe you don't have astrological help, but um, that doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means that, if I go back to my sailboat analogy, instead of the wind filling your sails, you're just going to have to take out the oars and start rowing. It's still possible.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that so much makes sense. So much makes sense. And if you can also, like, let's take a daily example, for especially for someone, who would say that and or maybe they would think, I mean, it's beautiful, it's a cool story, but then I have a job, I have a partner, there's a lot of stress. Like, are there any actionable thing that, they can do probably, this week, without completely getting deep down into astrology, like what are the practical applications here? Like if you can give an example, maybe how you do it or how you help people do it.
Absolutely. So the first thing you're going to do is at night, you're going to open up the curtains and you're going to take a look out the window.
Mm,
And the closest body to us, which has a massive effect on us, is the moon.
yeah.
And the moon governs over our emotional nature. And as human beings, we are very receptive to the cycles of the moon. And so, you put this so beautifully earlier, Sana, because and it was so poetic. You were talking about the waxing and the waning of the moon. And that holds an incredible power over our psyche. And many people, Sana, are not even aware or cognizant of how much those lunar cycles affect them. And and so I always tell people the first thing you do is you go and you take a look up in the nighttime sky. What phase is the moon in? And I mean, I always like to encourage people to just look at the moon instead of looking at an app. But to actually take in that light, right? Because that
Yeah.
light itself also has a quality. And we can work with the moon to help regulate not only our emotions, but also our vitality levels. Because the moon is the light in the sky at night. It's our light in the dark.
Yeah.
And as it's waxing or growing in light, these are times where we're more energetic, where we have the courage and the vitality to tackle the harder things that need to be done. But during the waning phase of the moon, this is our time to reflect, to rest, to nourish, to recharge our batteries so that when the new moon comes again, we have the energy to be out in the world and planting those seeds. And when we even just start observing some of those natural cycles of the moon and working with them that way, that brings so much emotional stability. Nowadays, everyone is trying to output constantly, with a disregard for the natural cycles. In all cycles, there's periods of activity and there's periods of rest.
Mm.
And so because we're constantly trying to output 100%, 100%, 100% every day, then people wonder why they're burnt out, why they're exhausted, why they're miserable, why they're engaging in conflict, why they never feel satisfied, why they're getting sick, all of these kinds of things. And a simple shift where during the waning phase of the moon, you just take time for a little bit of self reflection, a little bit of extra rest, and not needing to give it 1,000% can already start to help you feel sane again, I guess I could say.
And you know, as you explained it, like I was actually picturizing it. How um, I mean, first of all, I think it would be a privilege that if we are able to look at the sky, because especially people who are dwelling in urban cities, and it's all noise pollution. Sometimes it can look as a privilege as well to get exposed to nature, um, even sky. But if we have that opportunity, I think it is such a beautiful, I don't know, I mean, it's an ethereal view, looking at the stars, the moon, um and kind of seeking inspiration, because the other day, I think there was in the news about a meteor shower that would be visible, I think, a few days back only, somewhere between 12th December to 14th December. And
Yes.
I was actually so much, like this childlike excitement was within me to actually watch it. So the Indian time was somewhere between 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. And I just literally went out. It was like a pleasant winter night. Everything was quiet, and I just looked at the sky, and I mean, it was so endearing. Really, really like physically, it kind of helped me um, be a bit more positive, irrespective of so much
Yeah.
negativity around.
Yeah, I love it when I get those opportunities. A year ago, Sana, I got to go to Northern Canada,
Oh.
and I went out at night. It was the end of September, and oddly, it was strangely hot there. It wasn't supposed to be. They were having a heat wave. But
Mm.
at night, Sana, I stepped outside and I could see the Milky Way.
Oh my.
So I live in a city. Now I have family that lives north of Toronto here in Canada, and we would go to the cottage, and I could see the Milky Way at night. And so when I went up into northern Canada, I saw it. It was just this sense of home.
Mm.
There's so many wonders in the sky. And I always think back to the words of Marcus Manilius, who wrote the Astronomica, which is the oldest, mostly complete surviving text of astrology that we have left on the planet. And he wrote about how when you look up at the wonders of the sky and you see all these beauties, how can you wonder that we are anything but divine ourselves? Because the beauty that we see in the sky, these meteor showers and the Milky Way, all of these beauties are reflections of us and of who we are at the very core of our beings. And
Mm.
and that was what astrology was always meant to do. It was meant to remind us of our divine nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really love. I think this aspect doesn't get much of a limelight, in the popular conversations around astrology. I mean, even if we talk about like we hear, because you have said that royalty used to consult astrologers. Now corporations are doing, a lot of celebrities, they also kind of, what I've heard, what I've in the popular media, um consulting the high profile astrologers, like maybe adding another extra alphabet in their name. We have something called as, Vastu Shastra, which is basically the, how your home, your house should be designed according
Yeah.
to this particular branch. I mean, it's very different from astrology. But there's always there a skepticism because there may be no evidences here, no scientific research here. um so people would think it as a pseudoscience, and then there will be another school of thought where people will say, yeah, this really affects a lot, this really affects a lot. So I want to know your opinion on this, Alexander. Like, um what where can we draw the balance in there?
That's a really great question. Um, because science is important, but it's also incredibly limited. And we have made many accomplishments as human beings, and we can thank science for quite a bit of it.
Mm.
Um, but the balance really has to come from us embracing our divine nature. So science is limited to the knowledge that we have. And if we think back, I mean, even 100 years ago, a couple hundred years ago, there are things that we have now that never existed before or that we never
Yeah.
knew about.
Yeah.
And and so science is constantly evolving. And if you talk to anyone who is into quantum physics, they will tell you all about the parallels of quantum physics with metaphysics.
Yeah.
and how it just took scientists a long time to arrive where the metaphysicians, had been standing at the top of the mountain for thousands of years. So, I myself, I mean, I come from a background in physical health
Mm,
and education and, um, physical treatment.
mm,
So I understand science and I can understand the skepticism. But at the same time, I always look at the fruits of someone's life
mm.
because science can tell you that something works or science can tell you that something doesn't work.
Doesn't work, yeah.
But
But mhm.
if it works for you, then it works for you.
And it may not work
You
for someone
you are
else.
exactly, you are your own living proof.
Yeah. Mm.
And science can't take that away from you, nor can it give it to you.
And I think that's kind of, I think it will be like an ever going kind of a gap that, you know, there are so many people who are trying to bridge that gap. Um, as you explained, I mean, you come from like, completely opposite backgrounds. You're like physical health, martial arts, and then astrology. And I think it may be difficult initially, but I also believe that's something which is genuine and authentic. I think it will take its own time, not for validation, but I think for not just one person, but so many people out there to be the living proofs, when it comes to, um, what helps you. And maybe it's looking at the stars or the moon or understanding the cycles in there, making decisions accordingly. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you.
And that's exactly it.
Mm.
And this is why I love astrology so much because it really focuses on us as individuals. We
Mm.
all have different energetic natures. We are receptive to different forces to differing degrees. And when you really take the time to have that insight into your natal chart and you understand the forces that you have brought in with you as part of your purpose that contain gifts, areas of wisdom, abilities, understanding, that's that's what makes your life better
Mm.
because you can embrace the goodness of who you are and you can embrace those strengths and those talents and you can build a life using those qualities. So many people are aware of the lower aspects of their ego and
Mhm.
it's kind of funny to me, Sana, because they'll own they'll really own the negativities and the things that hold them back more than they will actually embrace their light, their good qualities, their wisdom. And if if I can just help them reverse that, where they own the goodness of themselves, just a little bit more than those limiting qualities or those limitations, then they can truly start to take off. Because the things that you're doing right, i.e., those good qualities, your light, your wisdom, those are the things that make your life enjoyable, that make your life abundant, that bring success, that bring good relationships, that bring health. And so if you focus on those parts of yourself and you keep growing them, which is really what astrology is trying to get you to do, then your world starts to change.
I agree. I agree. Beautiful, beautiful. Before we wrap up, Alexandra, if listeners, they would want to connect with you to seek further more wisdom and explore more around the work that you are doing, the resources that you are sharing. What is the easiest way?
The easiest way to connect with me would be via my website, which is astrologerroyale.com. You can also find me on Instagram at astrologer.royale. And I would be absolutely honored to connect with anyone for an astrology reading. I also offer courses through the Modern Mystery School, and I would be absolutely honored to share the teachings of the stars with you.
That's beautiful. Listeners, so as you all know, I'll make it easy for you. So just refer to the show notes along with this episode on your preferred podcast platform. And I think, you know, let's take a micro challenge for this week, listeners. Okay, track one thing. Pick maybe your mood, your energy, your conflict patterns, and your or maybe your productivity, like anyone. And then let's track it daily for 2 weeks. Of course, before you celebrate New Year and Christmas and then anywhere where you would be celebrating a festival, alongside the moon cycle. Not to prove anything instantly, but let's build data on your patterns. And if astrology is useful, it should help you make better choices. If it doesn't, you will know that too. And that's a win. So, Alexandra, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that you honestly, you really brought us to the actual essence of astrology and helped us kind of get a motivation to explore more about it, the actual essence in there, because I mean, there are so many misconceptions around it. So, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Sana. And I love how poetically you express everything. It was so beautiful to listen and be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And thank you to all the listeners for devoting your time to listen to this episode. If this conversation made you think, share it with a friend or a loved one who loves astrology. And also send it to a friend or a loved one who rolls their eyes at astrology. Balance the cosmos. And I, your host, Sana, will see you next time. Thank you.